Hello, my name is Jessica Callahan. I am a special education teacher at Will Rogers Elementary School in Veneta, Oklahoma. I teach the 3rd through 5th grade self-contained classroom in my building. Today, I am going to share with you, my fellow teachers and support staff, what phenylketonuria, or PKU, is, the etiology, which means what causes the disorder, and the needs of an individual with PKU. I will use the abbreviation most often in my presentation. What is phenylketonuria, or PKU? This is an inherited biochemical disorder that prevents an individual from metabolizing the essential amino acid phenylalanine. Phenylalanine is found in proteins. It is caused by a mutation in the gene that helps make an enzyme called phenylalanine hydroxylase. Phenylalanine is an essential amino acid, which means your body does not produce it naturally. It must be received from some other source. So it either needs to be ingested in a food source or ingested as a supplement. A person with PKU lacks the enzyme phenylalanine hydroxylase required to convert phenylalanine, or PHE, into another amino acid, tyrosine. Tyrosine is a non-essential amino acid, meaning your body produces it. So it produces it from phenylalanine hydroxylase in the body, which is an essential component for the production of several important brain chemicals called neurotransmitters, including epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. This is why it causes problems with the central nervous system, as you will see in the next slide. The unsafe levels of phenylalanine builds up in the bloodstream and the body. The enzyme buildup in the body and the bloodstream can cause harm to the central nervous system and cause brain damage. So here is a slide of what the metabolism process of phenylalanine, or PHE, would look like, and one that does not break it down. So this top part, in a person without PKU, they are able to break down the phenylalanine into phenylalanine hydroxylase and produce tyrosine, which is the non-essential amino acid, to produce epinephrine, norepinephrine. A person with PKU is not able to break down PHE. So the PHE builds up to toxic levels in their body, and there is no phenylalanine hydroxylase to produce tyrosine. Symptoms of PKU. Their severe PKU is sometimes called classic PKU, and some of those symptoms are intellectual disabilities, behavior problems, seizures, autism, eczema of the skin, lighter skin, and hair color. And I'm going to explain these in a little bit of detail. So intellectual disability also comes with conceptual skills, social skills, and practical skills. So ID, or intellectual disability, is limited function and adaptive behavior. They have a range of between 70 and 75. Some have a higher IQ range and some have a lower IQ range. It just depends. So a conceptual skill would be language, literacy, time, money, number concepts, and self-direction. So they don't understand that a penny is worth 1 cent, a dime is worth 10, a nickel is 5, and a quarter is 25. But they look at a dime and a penny and they think, or a dime and a nickel, and they think that because the nickel's bigger, it's worth more. No, it's not. That's not how it works. Social skills. They have trouble with interpersonal relationships, social responsibility, self-esteem, gullibility, which means that they are easily taken advantage of. They have trouble following the rules and obeying laws. Avoid being victimized. And problem solving. So they have trouble problem solving, which would be like, okay, I have to do this, but I don't know what to do. They have no problem solving skills. Practical skills, daily living, occupational skills, healthcare, which would be like medical needs, going to the doctor, taking their pills properly. Travel, traveling on vacation, traveling to work. Routines and schedules. So their routine is something like that they're going to do every day the same way. They get up in the morning, they brush their teeth, and then they eat breakfast. Then they go to work or school. Or after school, they take off their clothes that they wore to school and they put on shorts and a t-shirt. Schedules. They don't understand how to follow a schedule. They need to have it visually placed in front of them so they know that first I get up in the morning and I eat breakfast, then I brush my teeth, then I get dressed, then we go to school. And at school we're going to do the steps every day. Behavior problems. Now this can be caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain or just a frustration on their inability to complete certain tasks. That just depends on how much the PKU has affected them. Seizures. Most often, the seizures due to PKU are caused in infants because PKU is not fast enough. So most symptoms are caused at an early age, and once they figure out that it's the PKU and caused by eating too much protein, they cut the protein out of the diet and the seizures begin to subside. But according to the University of Chicago Medicine, a seizure is a sudden surge of abnormal electricity in the brain, which can cause a person to shake uncontrollably with rapid rhythmic movements, and the muscles will contract and relax repeatedly, and the person has no control over what is happening. And a lot of times they wake up and they don't know what's happened. Autism. The social reciprocity, or atypical communication, and repetitive behaviors. So they do the same thing every day. Do the same thing over and over. They rock. If they're sitting there doing work, they're going to rock. Some have a low IQ, but some also have an above average IQ, high functioning and low functioning autism. Eczema of the skin. It is a itchy, red, dry skin that is sometimes inflamed. Symptoms vary from person to person and are mild or moderate to severe. And if you scratch it, it can bleed and it can only make it worse. Mild or moderate PKU. So individuals with a mild or moderate PKU, have a milder degree of ID, or they also could have mild hyperphenylalaninemia, which is an individual with abnormal PHE levels but does not need treatment. So they are not needing restricted diet. They are not needed to be pulled off or supplements to be taken. But there should be follow-up testing to keep an eye on the PHE levels in their body so that there is no buildup of PHE later and that can cause some problems for them. PKU causes, like I said before, it is an inherited biochemical disorder. which inherited, which means it is passed to the child from the parent. So PKU is an autosomal recessive pattern, which means that the individual has to receive 2 copies of the gene that is altered, one from the mom, one from the dad. So the gene must be received from each parent. So here's a picture of an autosomal recessive. This is kind of like a Punnett square, except this just has people and it shows you your odds, a 1 in 4 chance. So the father is a carrier, the mother is a carrier. So the mother and the father pass the affected gene to this first child. The boy is affected with PKU. The mother and the father passes the carrier gene to the child. So this child, the girl, is a carrier of PKU. She can pass this to her offspring. The boy is also a carrier of PKU. He is not affected. Neither one are affected, but they do carry the gene. And the daughter on the ends and all the tan, she is an unaffected child. She is neither a carrier nor affected. She has had nothing passed on to her. So there is a 1 in 4 chance that the gene will be passed to the offspring according to what would be like a Punnett square. PKU is very rare disease. It only affects 1 in 11,000 in the U.S. So it's not very common and not a lot of people know about it. So here's what I found as far as the effect on race and sex. Race, it seemed to affect most white people more than any other individuals, than blacks or Hispanics. White was the highest at 150. Hispanics were next at 10. Blacks were 4. Asian Pacific Islanders were 0. Native Americans were 2, and others who did not and unknown were 6 and 24. So white individuals will be most common carriers of PKU. Sex, there was not really that big of a discrepancy between male and female. Males were 98. Females were 93, so that's only a difference of 5 degrees. So it's pretty common in either one, but more than likely you're going to find it in a male than a female. Testing. Testing is done within the first 2 weeks of the child being born. That way, nothing can interfere with the test. So the testing is done either before the child leaves the hospital or within the first 2 weeks, because they don't want any outside interference to sway the PKU testing. Testing is required in all 50 states in the U.S. It's also done by a heel stick to check the blood. It's a very simple process. Here's what a heel stick would look like. The nurse or other medical personnel will prick the baby's heel on the side and collect several drops of blood on a card to make dried blood spots, and that is sent to the lab for testing. So the nurse or the doctor will lance the side of the heel, that is the proper place, and then they will pull drops of blood from there to send it off for testing. This is required in all 50 states, so it has to happen. There is no choice. Prevention or control. Prevention would be a diet and low protein. That's how they would prevent it or control their symptoms. Protein comprises of amino acids. An amino acid is the building block of polypeptides in proteins. So that's why that's why an essential amino acid and non-essential amino acid are very important in this. Some amino acids are not produced and must be ingested. So that would be an essential amino acid. Proteins are either limited or removed from the diet. There are some supplements that can be taken for a low protein diet, and these supplements are going to include like a shake or a pill to take or something like that, which are going to be, they have protein, but they are going to not include the amino acid phenylalanine, which causes PKU. So here's the slide with a target that would be best for an individual to shoot for. So it says choose the foods closest to the bullseye. So the bullseye is the center red dot, and then in the yellow ring, this is what the individual should shoot for. They shoot for eating vegetables, drinking juices, low protein breads and pastas, and fruits. Okay, so this is almost kind of like a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet. They can only eat these things if they have to remove all protein from their diet, and this is where they would eat supplements or take supplements. In the green is some things that a low protein diet individual could have: peas, potatoes, french fries, bread, corn, and regular pasta. This is going to have some protein included in the food. So this would be a very limited intake of these foods. This outside gray would be if a person has no protein intake, they shouldn't even go near this gray spot at all. Now, if the person has a limited protein, then this should also still be limited. Take in very little or none at all. The needs of the individual. Because PKU causes ID, behavior problems, seizures, and autism, there are certain needs that will need to be met for an individual. It can affect work in school, or it can affect work at work. There are some learning deficits, fine motor loss, and ADHD that also accompany PKU disorders. The diet will need to be modified at school if the student eats lunch. This will also have to come along with a signed paper from the doctor saying that this child has to have a PKU-free diet, and that has to be done yearly. You have to have an updated paper that says that. So a Section 504 plan for the diet or medical needs should be set up, or an IEP may be necessary for a child with PKU for dietary restrictions and educational needs. The IEP can include both the medical and the educational needs. The Section 504 plan is just for medical. Due to damage caused by the buildup of phenylalanine, the student may have cognitive or other problems. So there needs to be needs met for the student to have a successful educational and work experience. The student may need to be tested and an IEP plan be put into place for the student. This should include the resource room, modifications and accommodations, the SLP, which is speech and language, the OT, which is occupational therapy, and or the PT needs, which is physical therapy. It should also include any least restrictive environments, or LRE, any aids and services such as an AT device, or if they are in a wheelchair, anything like that. It should also include present level of academic performance. So, reiterate, the IEP should have goals, present level of academic performances, accommodations and modifications, LRE, which is least restrictive environment, Any aids and services such as AT or para needs, and related services such as your SLP, OT, or PT needs. This stuff needs to be included so that the student can have a successful educational career. This is very important for them. So I have 3 pages of references and citations that I have found. This is page 1. This is page 2. And this is page 3. So that is PKU, and I have a brochure and a PowerPoint slide note page for you to look at also. Thank you.